Well, hello. Welcome to Orchid Blooms podcast. Welcome back, bloomers, to the summer schedule of Orchid Blooms podcast. I am your host, Orchid Brown. You can find me on TikTok, X, and Blue Skies at Orchid Eye Brown. If you have enjoyed Orchid Blooms podcast over the years, you now have the opportunity to donate a minimum of $5 to support the podcast on DonateTree or Ko-fi.com. For those who would like to donate on DonateTree, you can find this podcast at donate, DONATR.ee/Orchid Blooms. And for those who are more comfortable with Ko-fi, you can find the podcast under Ko-fi, so ko-fi.com/Orchid Blooms podcast. For those of you having issues to donate, I will upload the QR code on our Instagram page at The Ambitious Net. So all you have to do is scan the QR code, make a donation to support, and I thank you very much for that. Today's episode is one that I've been thinking about for quite some time. I'm sure you know by now, I'm one of those people that will come up with a topic in my mind and sit on it for months at a time. And so this is one of those cases. And this podcast episode is about the religion connected, because this is something that I truly wanted to learn about, understand, and hopefully break down in a podcast episode for you all. Religion is one of the most influential forces in human history. It has shaped cultures, inspired movements, and built communities, started conversation, and unfortunately, at times, created division. Yet, despite how important religion is, many people only know their faith tradition or what they have heard from others. I am definitely one of those people that had to have conversation with numerous people about this topic. And I learned a lot. I did learn a lot, and I knew that this podcast episode was quite important based on the conversations that I've had with people, because there were information that I wasn't really aware of. Yes, I've heard things over the years, and I now have the opportunity to kind of apply some of that to this podcast episode, and I'm really excited about that. So today I want to explore a question that has been on my mind. Why do religions exist, and what connections exist between them? Before we begin, I want to make one thing clear. This episode is not about deciding which religion is right. A lot of conversation happens because a lot of people believe that one religion is right over another. And that is not what this podcast episode or this conversation that I'm having with you is about. We are not interested in creating any conflict over which religion is right or better or make more sense. It is not about proving one religion is better than the other. It is not about convincing anyone to change their beliefs. Instead, this is a conversation about history, human nature, and the common threads that connects many of the world's faith traditions. So let's begin with a simple observation. No matter where people come from, they tend to ask the same big questions. Why are we here? What is the purpose of life? What happens after death? How should people treat one another? How do we deal with suffering? Is there a higher power? And so many more questions, which I will not add to this podcast episode, but these questions have existed for thousands of years. Civilizations separated by oceans, languages, and cultures still found themselves asking remarkably similar questions. Religion became one way people attempted to answer them. Religion also serves practical purposes. It creates community. It provides moral guidance. It offers hope during difficult times. It helps preserve cultural identity. It creates a sense of spiritual connections. Whether someone is Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Hindu, Buddhist, or follows another path, religion often provides a framework for understanding life and our place within it. Maybe one reason religion has survived for thousands of years. Now, when conversations about religion happens, people often focus on differences. Different beliefs, different practices, different traditions, different interpretations. What happens when we look at the connections, that is where things become interesting. Let's begin with 3 religions that share a common historical connection. The 3 are Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. They have very strong historical connections. These are often referred to as the Abrahamic religions because they trace part of their spiritual heritage back to Abraham. Many people know the names of these religions. Fewer people recognize how much history they share. In the biblical account, Abraham and Sarah struggled to have children. Because of this, Sarah suggested that Abraham had a child with a servant named Hagar. Hagar gave birth to Ishmael. Later, Sarah gave birth to Isaac. From that point forward, the story branches. In Jewish traditions, the covenant continues through Isaac. Christianity emerges from Judaism and also traces its root through Abraham and Isaac. In Islamic tradition, Ishmael becomes an important figure connected to the ancestor of Arab peoples and the lineage associated with the Prophet Muhammad. What is fascinating is that all 3 religions look back to Abraham as an important figure. The details and interpretations differ, but the connection remains. This is one example of how religion that sometimes appear completely separate are historically connected. Another interesting connection involves figures shared between faiths. Many people are surprised to learn that Islam recognizes numerous figures that Christians and Jews also recognize: Abraham, Moses, Noah, and Jesus. The understanding of these individuals may differ, but their presence within multiple faith traditions creates a historical bridge between religions. One of the most surprising example is Mary. Most people know Mary as the mother of Jesus within Christianity. Catholic place a particularly strong emphasis on Mary's importance. However, Mary is also deeply respected within Islam. The first time I had heard about a religion worshiping Mary, I was quite ecstatic. I was shocked, but I was ecstatic, especially since most religion favors men. And so going to a friend's place and, we were sitting at the dining room table and we were just having a conversation, and somehow it landed on religion, and the person said, oh, they were Catholic and that, we worship Mary. She deserves all the glory. And I said, wow, that is super neat. That's super cool. I am so glad that there was at least one religion who put a heavy importance on Mary. I was not aware that Islam did the same thing, but I am learning that now. And still I'm very happy for that, because again, she gave birth to Jesus Christ. She should not be forgotten. She was there, when he was resurrected. She mourned him. She mourned him. And I felt my heart went out to her when I was reading the Bible. But as much as there are a few female figures in the Bible that has truly made a difference in a positive way, it was pretty nice to hear, early 20s, someone sit there and say that Mary deserves all the glory. She gave birth to the Son of God, and she deserves to be worshiped for that, and we should continuously show her appreciation. And I thought, damn, that's beautiful. Just beautiful. So that was when I learned about the Catholics and how much emphasis they put on praising Mary and truly showing her appreciation to the ends of time, or to the end of time. Whenever we reach Revelations and we're all there on Judgment Day being judged. So I just wanted to share that a little bit with you guys, of the shock and surprise that I felt the first time I heard that. And it was good. It was good. Mary is honored as one of the most revered women in Islamic tradition. For many people, discovering this connection changes how they view the relationships between Christianity and Islam. The more you study religious history, the more connections begin to appear. This brings me to another misunderstanding that many people have. Christianity and Catholicism are often spoken about as if they are separate religions. Honestly, that is exactly what I thought as well. I have met so many Catholic people and I've met so many Christian people, and when we come together and we talk about both religions, they always make it sound like it's a separate thing and it has nothing to do with Christianity or the connection between them. At this point, I felt that Catholic and Christianity were like distant cousins, right? That's how the relationship, that's how people made it seem when they talk about the two difference between them. It was almost as though they had no association with each other at all. The scorn between them was just weird. Just weird. It's kind of similar to when, I moved to Ottawa and I found out that, Jamaicans and Haitians had beef, and I said, for what? And, the thought process in both of these people's minds when they were saying this to me was that, we just have a long-standing beef, but I'm like, over what? But again, Haiti and Jamaica are Caribbean islands. There's no real difference. Maybe culture and maybe language is different, but they're still Caribbean islands. So that is the connection. So now, coming to Canada and having these conversations with a Christian and a Catholic, and they both just seem quite separate and they don't view each other as like family. It was just odd. It was just odd to me. So I said, okay, I guess there's a huge difference. But the reality is Catholics are Christians. Christianity is the larger faith tradition. Within Christianity, there are different branches. Some of the factions are Catholic, Protestant, unorthodox, all Christian beliefs in Jesus Christ. The difference usually involve church authority, traditions, sacraments, and interpretation of certain teachings. Understanding these distinctions helps us see that not every religious difference represents a completely separate religion. Sometimes the difference is occurring within a larger faith tradition. I remember years ago going to this church. I was there for about 7 years, and I remembered meeting this wonderful woman, such a wonderful woman. And she had moved from Toronto to basically start afresh and just kind of release herself from the past hurts and pains that she has gone through. And she came to Ottawa and we met at the church. And I remembered sitting down in like a fellowship group where we were just kind of reading the Bible and discussing things. And she had mentioned, prior to me already getting to know her, and we got connected and we liked each other and we spent some time together. I never really asked her about her history. She's mentioned things here and there, but I didn't ask too much because, again, it's none of my business. And she had mentioned that she was Catholic before, and now that she's come to Ottawa, she's decided that she felt more comfortable being in a Christian church. And I looked at her kind of funny, and I had so many more questions, but I couldn't really do that in front of the other ladies because I was not sure what she wanted to share. And I just recalled a lot of the ladies that were sitting there were just kind of smiling this weird ass smile, creeps, and looking at her and just going, oh, that's amazing. They didn't bother to probe her, to ask questions like what made her decide that Christianity made more sense than Catholics. Nothing like that. They were just really happy that she chose Christianity and she was putting another religion down. And so I thought that was just really odd. So I would say, why did you leave being Catholic? And this was like a personal question that I asked her as I whispered it, because clearly nobody cared. And she just said, it just made more sense. And I said, okay, and I keep hearing this from a lot of people that convert from one to another, not realizing that they're quite all similar. So what was the big difference? What was the big difference? Yes, Catholic is more, they give more emphasis to Mary. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe the reason why she preferred Christianity is because they push Christ Jesus more than they do Mary. Yes, Mary is discussed, but not as a huge important figure. Yes, they give her the glory. Yes, they thank her for giving birth to Jesus Christ. And she is mentioned, she is talked about, but the glory will always go to Jesus Christ, who gave his life for our sins. So I just kind of, I wish she kind of broke it down for me, but it didn't seem like she could. And so there was really nothing else I could get from that conversation. Now let's move beyond the Abrahamic religion. Let's take a moment to discuss some other major religions, such as Hinduism. Hinduism is one of the world's oldest religious traditions. It explores concepts such as karma, dharma, and reincarnation. I believe in all three of these things, but I'm not a Hindu, right? I would never convert just because I believed in it. But I do follow those principles. And if you truly think about it, the Bible does talk about karma. It doesn't say that in many words. It's kind of like they would say things like, you reap what you sow. That's karma. And as well as dharma. And reincarnation, I don't recall reading that in the Bible, but I'm sure if I studied the Bible for a few more years, there may be a section that truly talks about reincarnation. I still have not finished Revelations, and to be perfectly honest, I am trying to find someone who is incredibly knowledgeable about Revelations so that I could have a series of podcast episodes where we kind of break down that book. But I still have not found that person, and we're all busy. So one day it will happen, and it will just be a series that lasts for a whole month. Maybe it could be a 1 to 2 hour podcast episode. I'm trying to limit that, but maybe like an hour and a half. I'm gonna try to push it. Hour and a half, but reasonably I only want to do an hour. But I'm still waiting to find that person where we can truly sit down and discuss Revelations and kind of break everything down as we go, and hopefully that doesn't last an entire year. But yeah, so I personally believe in some of the concepts that they explore in Hinduism, and so I feel a connection to that. The next one is Buddhism. Buddhism places a significant emphasis on understanding suffering, developing compassion, and pursuing inner peace. I am all about pursuing inner peace, developing compassion. I feel like I have enough. Now I just need to learn how to have boundaries on my compassion and empathy, which is what I've been working on over the years. And understanding suffering, I try not to look at that. So I don't think I fall into that category of wanting to learn more about that. But other than that, the Buddhists, they're doing a great job as far as I'm concerned. And I'm the type of person that would definitely go to one of their temples, sit down and listen to their teachings. 100%. I have no problems learning about other religions and absorbing as much knowledge from them as I possibly can. Could you imagine if all of these religions came together and sat down and had a discussion about some of the questions that I asked in the beginning of this podcast episode? Do you know how many of these questions would have been answered just through a simple debate between people from different religions that are knowledgeable about their religion, and to truly have that conversation. I really hope it's not one of those boring kind of sessions where they're throwing scriptures. Like, good for you. I need you to talk to me like you're telling a story. It'd be the most interesting thing I ever experienced. And I would love for that day to come, but I'm not sure if people can get off of their high horse and stop thinking that their religion's better than everybody else. Unfortunately, that ego and that pride will always be there. The next on the list is Skiism, which I'm hoping I said that properly. This is the first time I've ever heard of that religion, ever, so I had to really look into it. It teaches belief in one God while emphasizing equality, service to others, and honest living. Although these religions developed in different places and cultures, they are also addressing many of the same human concerns. And so even though this is the first time I've ever heard of this, majority of the stuff that their beliefs are built on can be found in the Christian Bible. And so maybe that's the reason why I've never heard of them. It's not something different to me. The emphasis on equality, if you truly read the Bible, a lot of people would say that the Bible is very sexist based on the way the characteristics that they put under females and being below and submitting. I think a lot of definitions that are being thrown around is not accurate. Maybe for the time and maybe for the language, because again, the Christian Bible is a translation from the Jewish language. And so there are certain things that get lost in interpretation. But if you truly read it, there is a level of respect between men and women, especially in marriage, where the man knows his role and a woman knows her role. And if you think about it, that level of respect between them and both of them understanding their roles is equality as far as I'm concerned. The woman has her own strength and the man has his own strength, and the man leans towards his strengths and the woman leans towards her strengths. And because of that, coming together in a household together as a man and wife, they combine these strengths together and they build an amazing foundation where they raise their family and they live in a good life. So as much as there are people out there, some skeptics who are like, oh, but why she had a weaker role? Well, number one, is she strong enough to be going out there and killing all of these animals and slaughtering and doing farming and all of that stuff? No. Women are not meant to be in the sun all day working in the fields. We are meant to be at home. We'll keep the home clean. We'll take the money. We will invest it. We will make sure everyone in the house is fed and clothed. That, we manage. Men are just good at so many other things, not to insult y'all, but you're good at providing. You're good at getting up in the morning, taking a shower, eating, taking care of, kissing your wife goodbye, maybe taking care of your kids. Who knows? Some males don't do that. They think it's beneath them. They go out and they work and they provide. They bring in the harvest. They bring in what is needed for the family, and the wife takes it, she distributes it, and there's a term for what I'm trying to say. Watch me figure out this term after I've recorded this podcast episode and post it up. I'm just that girl these days. But I am hoping that you understand the gist of what I have to say. In the Bible, there was a partnership. It wasn't emphasized, but there was a partnership. Everyone knew their role and everyone focused on their strengths. Yes, they all had weaknesses, but they focused on their strengths. And because they focused on their strengths, they were able to build something together. Even if it took years, they built something together. And so when I read the Bible, I don't see non-equality. I see equality. And of course, the Bible's always pushing service to others, stewardship, all of these things. No matter which book you read in the Bible, someone is being of service. It doesn't matter. It could be a group of people. Somebody is being of service. And of course, honest living. You read Proverbs. Proverbs talks about wisdom. It talks about all the things that you need to do using wisdom to live a fruitful life. So maybe that's the reason why I've never heard of this religion. Because Christianity has had this widespread of the same kind of beliefs being pushed in every church, in every home, all over the world. And so maybe that's why. The questions are, how should we live? How should we treat others? How do we find peace? How do we navigate suffering? And that is the most interesting observation that I have had, because one of the reasons why those questions are so popular is because not everyone, you could give them the answer, but if it's not something that they've practiced, if it's not something that they've ever seen before, it's very difficult to process the answer to those questions. The questions are often shared, even when the answer differs. Many people all over the world find their answers to questions that they're seeking through their own religion or other religions. Others find it through answers in Judaism, Buddhism, Hudaism, Skiism. Again, don't know if I'm saying that properly, or another faith tradition entirely. When someone says a religion makes more sense, they are often speaking from personal experience. Their upbringing, their values, their life experience, their spiritual journey. What makes sense to one person may not make sense to another. And I feel like that's a disconnect that we're all experiencing in the world, understanding. And that is a part of the reason why conversations about religion can become so passionate. Religion is not simply a set of ideas. For many people, it is tied to identity, family, culture, and purpose. But perhaps there is another way to approach these conversations. Instead of immediately asking which religion is better, we could decide to first ask what religions have in common. Many religions encourage compassion. Many encourage honesty. Many encourage charity. Many encourage forgiveness. Many encourage service to others. Many encourage self-discipline. Again, the details may differ, but these values appear repeatedly across cultures and across centuries. That does not mean all religions are identical. They are not. There are significant differences in beliefs, teachings, practices, and theology. Those differences matter. At the same time, understanding the connections can help us have more thoughtful conversations with one another. The goal does not have to be agreement. The more I learn about religions, the more I realize that people are often searching for similar things: meaning, purpose, belonging, hope, and connections. Answers to questions that human beings have been asking for generations. Perhaps that is the real connection, not that every religion teaches the same thing, but that every religion exists because human beings continue to search for meaning in a complex world. Maybe that shared search teaches us something important about who we are. So that concludes this podcast episode. I want to thank you for joining me for today's conversation. Your support is appreciated, so thank you for also listening to multiple podcast episodes and supporting that way. Don't forget to donate Tree Orchid Blooms or Ko-fi.com/Orchid Blooms podcast. I would like to keep this podcast going so that we can continue to have interesting and amazing conversations going forward. Take this time to subscribe, follow, rate, and leave a review on the podcast platform of your choice. Our social media pages are Orchid Blooms YouTube channel, The Ambitious Obsession Network on Facebook, at The Ambitious Ops on Twitter, at The Ambitious Net on Instagram. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, keep blooming. I hope you have a splendid day.